This is the incubator that I use to hatch out my duck eggs. So in the winter, what I do is I store it. This is the unit here, the top unit. This spool here is what's going to rotate if you choose to use the turner. I've actually already removed the turner out of this because I manually turn the eggs. So this is, you have your power cord. Now one thing you'll see once I set it up, I do use a measuring cup for the water rather than pouring water in the basin, and that's because there's really no way to control the humidity, and I found that the humidity was perfect when I used just this cup full and just kept this full versus, like I said, filling the whole basin. So then you take out your humidity gauge, and then this here is going to be your hatching rack. And then this here is for when you're incubating. And what you'll notice with the difference here is, so when this goes in, you'll see these ridges. These ridges, the rack that holds the turning rack will sit here and glide back and forth, being held within these ridges. And so when this spike, you think you flip this over this way and see how it would be over this hole. And that kind of shows you the circle is where that turning, that little spool is. So because I don't do that, I do keep mind of this. So I try not to put the eggs near where that spool is going to be going around. But I don't know that it would really bother them other than just push them a little bit. But again, where I manually rotate them, I don't really want them to be flipped right back to the side that they were on. So I just try to keep eggs over onto this side when I put them in. This is the manual. I can just move this aside. And again, when this comes out, this is your basin. So I'm just going to do a quick cleanup, and then I'll show you how I put it together. We'll get it started, and then I'll put the eggs in, and we'll be ready to roll. Okay, so I have everything set up and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is where you would add your water to the incubator. Now the instructions told me to put the water in the basin. When I did that, the humidity went through the roof. So through trial and error, I found that placing a measuring cup in the bottom worked perfectly, and I didn't have any issue with the humidity after that. When you put this hatching tray in, however, because the stubs are so narrow, oops, I gotta clean this up again. But because they're so narrow, they actually don't sit well on that. So at that point, I did just put water in. But once they start hatching, the humidity goes through the roof anyway, and so that's what I found, that it was starting to skyrocket basically with every duck that hatched. But they all start rocking and rolling at that point, so it's fine. But while you're hatching, it works perfectly. You put this tray, without trying to knock it over one-handed, oops, sorry, and like that. So again, you want to keep these ridges up, because especially if you're using that turning tray, it really doesn't matter if you're manually turning as I do, but you're going to want to do that for this. And then your tray would be here, and you want to make sure that, one second, I'm actually going to grab the tray real quick. So just to show you, this is the tray that sits in here, and it will slide along here and turn, and so it would be rotating the eggs. I've read that these do not work as well for larger eggs like duck eggs and goose eggs. I have a friend of mine that has incubated with success using these turning trays. I prefer to do it manually. It's just a personal preference, but you'd use these little dividers and you slide them in, and so you would then put your eggs and just do little rows to keep them separate. So then as this turns in a circle, it would, as that pin spins, it would turn them. So I think you can change the settings to how often, but again, I don't use this, so I'll just set that aside. But if you are using that, the important thing you want to do is, I'm flipping it over because of course this would be this way, the cover would flip on it. You want to make sure that pin goes into that slot, because that's what's going to actually cause it to turn around. But again, if you're not using that, you don't have to worry about it. So from here, because this flips over, because you want that pin to line up with that disc there, which actually I have it technically backwards, so it doesn't matter because that tray here can flip around. So that's how you set that up. The one thing I forgot to put in is my little humidity gadget here. Sorry, one-handed. This has all the weight to it because that's the heat unit and all the machinery part, because this is just plastic in the bottom. So you set that in there. Again, one-handed is a little. That will just set right on there. It doesn't click or anything. It just sets there. It nests within. I've already have the unit plugged in, so then I just plug the unit here and it comes on. So now it's telling me, it's blinking L because it's low. It's saying that it's 20.3 degrees. It is Celsius. You'll see the little C right there. It's probably harder on this. I'll see if I can focus it in. So then, I'm trying to remember, you hit set and humidity. Trying to think. Okay, it was set to 30, and I'm gonna turn it up to 37. It's actually 37 and a half, so I'm gonna do 38, and then I'm gonna see what happens. So one thing I highly recommend is getting a gauge that you can tell the temperature. You just hold it and it will tell you. So it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit, and so in a few minutes I can look and the temperature will have risen up, as well as, you know, the humidity is going to rise. But the nice thing is if you put that right on the edge, you can peek in. You can see it's already starting to go up there, and that shows that it's 19 degrees Celsius. Our goal, because we're hatching ducks, is going to be 37.5 degrees Celsius, and which is 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and 55% humidity is our goal. I found that if the humidity goes up a little bit, they still hatch fine. So that's how we set it up. So we'll let this run for a few minutes, and then we'll get the eggs ready to go. While this continues to warm up, again, we can monitor it down here, what the temperature is. While this continues to warm up, I want to show you one thing that I like to do to help keep track of the eggs. Let me set this, try to balance the camera. So as you're turning the eggs, you want to make sure that you turn all of the eggs over. So one thing that I do is I take a pencil and I put X on one side, turn it over, and put an O. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just for your own reference. And so as you're doing this, when we put them in, you'll see in a few minutes that I'll have all the X's up or all the O's up. So then tomorrow, when I turn the eggs, I can make sure that they all turn over. And so because one of the important things with incubating eggs is making sure that they are turning. And again, see, what I've heard is that the manual turner works well for chicken eggs, but it more or less just rocks them. Whereas, like I said, I like to do it manually because then I can actually flip the eggs over complete 180. So I'm going to finish these up, and again, once the temperature gets and the humidity gets to where it wants and is regulated, then we can go ahead and put them in. Some people normally I like to let it run for a while. This was kind of a last minute. I didn't think I was getting the eggs till tomorrow, and so because I got them a day early, we're just going to have to go with it. The one thing you'll also notice too with these eggs is that they're not super clean like you'd find in the grocery store. You'll see this one here has a little bit of dirt from the pen. You do not want to wash the eggs as much as you may want to. I've had eggs that looked dirtier than this from the batch that I had last year, and they hatched completely fine. One last thing I want to show is how to candle an egg without getting any fancy candlers. This is just a regular flashlight. You can adjust the beam, so I've just made it so it's the brightest that it could be, and you'll just grab an egg, and I kind of wrap my hand around it to keep so the light is just going into the egg, and then you're able to look through. And of course these ones have not been in the incubator yet, so you can see the spot where the yolk is, and these all should look the same. Just there's the yolk, nothing happening there. So hopefully once these all go in the incubator, hopefully in a few days we will have some signs of life. So I've been checking the temperature and I feel comfortable to put the eggs in at this point. So we're going to remove the lid. Careful not to upset our little measuring cup that we have down below. And you can't really go by the temperature and humidity at this point because of course we're adding eggs and we just took the heating top off. But you could use this. Normally I just try to peek at the temperature so it's showing 90 at the bottom of the tray, and of course we want it warmer than that. So we'll get everybody in there and then see, check again on the temperature. Of course it's already dropped being open. So from here I'm going to take the eggs out. Let me spin this around. Be careful not to drop them. So as I said before, you're going to pay attention to the letter that you placed on them. So if you want all the O's up or all the X's up, one or the other, it doesn't matter in the slightest. The only thing those do is tell you what side that you've turned to. So some clearer than others, doesn't matter. And what we will do is in about a week we're going to go ahead and candle these and see if there's any growth happening. One thing I also do is sometimes I feel like this side gets hotter than this side or vice versa. So while I'm turning them, I'll also switch what side of the incubator they are on. I find that this incubator holds about 17 duck eggs comfortably. Now, one thing that's super exciting, I collected these eggs you see here from a neighbor because my girls are slackers. But I've labeled these eggs Delilah because my girl Delilah the last couple days has laid a couple eggs. This one kind of got dirty and kicked around a little bit, but so that's all the eggs. You'll see we're gonna make sure once they're all in, they kind of hold each other together. So I don't worry about the X's and O's as much until they're all in, and then you can just kind of adjust to make sure they're all ready. So then we're gonna move our humidity so that you can read it when it's closed. And then, oops, we forgot. So remember this pin is going to be right over the top here. So I'm going to move this egg over here. It's not a huge deal. Again, I don't think it hurts anything, but I try to keep that, oops, this fell thing, so that the pin isn't bumping the eggs and bothering them. Like I said, I don't think it makes a difference, but that way, if it does, the eggs are safe. So now we're gonna put that little piece hanging down, I think is a thermostat deal. So, hang on, I gotta, it's two hands so I can protect them from that pin, because I also don't want to puncture where that pin comes down, so that's where that will rotate. So everybody is in. We're gonna wait, see the temperature's gone down. It's flashing because it needs to come back up to where we have it set. So from here we're just gonna wait, and in a week we will be candling them. So if you like this video, please subscribe and check out my other videos that I'll be posting as we follow the progress of these ducks. And so crossing our fingers that we have 14 eggs if I counted correctly. I think, or no, she gave me 13 eggs today plus my 2, so we have 15 in here. So we'll see how many are fertilized. So here we go. Duck hatch 2019.